Okay, we're going live on YouTube. Just-
That's all right, we got 15 minutes.
I might go ahead and use the mic. Is there a possibility of an executive session tonight?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, there it is.
If we have a call.
I got one.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, there's two. We need two more. We're off to the races.
Mr. Jackson? Yeah, it
Okay.
just doesn't have any.
I've got, there's three.
You want to unlock it?
Yeah, I suppose we should. Howdy. Next one you'll have to knock.
Can I ask a question before we get started?
Sure.
I was here last week about a zoning variance for a deck. And they said like last week, that it's gotta be approved by the whole. Is it, do they do it like in block or is it one by one?
One by one.
Oh, okay.
They'll take each one, discuss it, talk about it, do one, then they'll go to the second, and they'll do the third.
Hey, Steve, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Anthony.
Oh, thank you, Chief.
Steve, very quickly, I have nothing.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Hey, Jerry. Hi.
Mike is live.
Mike is live or the mic is live?
Both. Mike's on.
Okay, I got 1 minute. I've got. I got a blue screen.
It'll come up.
I saw Gatling, Nemic, Moreno. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. I make 5. We're missing Ed and Don.
I saw Ed up for a while. Did he drop off?
We've got an iPhone.
I think that's Ed. And he may not have, he said he may not have enough bandwidth for video, that he may just be on the Zoom on sound only.
Ed, is that you?
He doesn't have any audio. He can't hear.
Blink twice. Can he see us?
He probably can see you, but he can't. We can't hear him. And I messaged him in chat. He hasn't responded.
John, do you have that spare battery?
Yeah.
Don't start the show without me.
A couple.
Well, one might not work. Oh, give me the,
It did get marked and I'll use hand signals. Skipping every other word.
We got a mouse down.
Yeah.
There's Ed.
There he is. That's a picture.
Doesn't want to move.
he's on his boat.
That's the only place where you could get a signal strong enough.
He's on his boat?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure there's a story behind that.
That's the only place where they could go and get a signal strong enough. They're at like the end of the world.
They're down the middle of the lake?
Yeah.
No, the edge of the lake.
Yes, that's.
Okay, we've got 7:30, September 21st. This is the second meeting of the month for the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow. We are attending remotely and in person, according to the executive order of Governor Pritzker issued on September 18th, 2020, renewing the pandemic emergency requirements that allow us to have a remote and in-person meeting. So I'd like to verify that we have contact. Those on remote can hear us and we can hear them. Clerk, could you verify, please?
Mr. Datley,
Aye.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Zimba, Mr. Merkel,
Here.
Mr. Harney. Wave your hand, Ed.
We've lost a picture of him.
Who's that in the lower right corner?
Kyle?
Mr. Killinger.
I hear you.
Okay,
Got it.
and the chief.
And Mr. Chief Rivas, there you go.
Okay. Mr. Harney's attempting to wave in on us. Okay, call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Pledge allegiance.
Oh, pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now roll call, please.
Mr. Datley,
Here.
Mr. Moreno,
Here.
Mr. Nimitz,
Here.
Mr. Zimba, Mr. Merkel,
Here.
Mr. Harney.
Here.
Excellent.
Okay, we've got 5 of the 6 trustees present, either in person or remotely. We have a quorum, we have a meeting. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of September 8th, 2020.
Move to approve the village board meeting minutes of September 8th, 2020.
Got an unstable connection.
Second, Diatley.
Moved by Merkel, seconded by Diatley to approve the minutes of September 8th, 2020. Are there any corrections?
I have one under new business where we go into executive session. It says we're going to discuss recent salary increase requests from village part-time personnel and other budgetary issues. I think we should insert, and also full-time non-police employees. To discuss them also. It sounds like it's just the part-timers.
It should be part-time personnel and non-union.
Okay, non-union.
Non-union.
Okay. So if we could correct that or add that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Any other corrections? Okay, Mr. Merkel noted he'd like the new business to note that the discussion also involved part-time personnel as well as non-union personnel. Okay. No further additions or corrections. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Merkel,
Aye.
Mr. Harney.
Aye.
Okay, 5 affirmative votes and no negative votes. The motion so passes and minutes are so accepted. Okay, next one is the president's report. And we have an update on the CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Fund. Last week, we did submit an application to the village or to the county. We had approximately $30,000 on there for updating our computer systems to handle remote meetings throughout the village buildings. That's the administrative side, the police side, and public works. We also submitted the payroll for public safety to cover the balance of the $192,000 that we were allowed to apply for. I did get notice Friday afternoon, or let's see, what day is that?
Today's Monday.
Today's Monday. I believe it was Thursday afternoon last week. We got final word that our application had been accepted and that we would be receiving the funds. However, we still have to have an intergovernmental agreement with the county processed and approved. That should be coming to us shortly. And then the funds will be distributed shortly thereafter. So, do we have any questions on the CARE Act funds?
Do they accept the police part of it?
They accepted the whole 9 yards,
Great,
so we
wonderful.
get every nickel.
Good job.
It's
That's good.
$92 and change.
Good job.
Okay, there being no other questions or comments concerning the CARES Act, I'll move to the clerk's report.
I have 2 items for tonight, both mostly just informational. Tomorrow starts the opening day for packets for the consolidated election in April 2021. So the packets are available in the village hall. There is I put a notation or copy of the memo in your package so you can see what we're looking at. There's been copies posted on the village website as well as on both doors here at the village hall. So that was the first item. The second item is in response to several calls that I'd gotten last week from citizens here asking where they could vote, where early voting was. I secured a copy of the Kane County early voting site list, and that is in your packet, and that's been published on the village website as well. So barring those 2 items, that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Planning and zoning. Ms.
Thank you,
Deppner.
President Pickett. On behalf of Planning and Zoning Commission Chair Dirk Fuqua, he asked me to stand in for him to brief on the meeting that was held on September 10th, 2010, or 2020. Boy, I'm doing well tonight. Sorry, folks.
I set the pace, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Everybody confused.
Exactly. Sorry about that. Anyway, the recommendations for village board action is the Village of Sleepy Hollow Planning and Zoning Commission met September 10th, 2020 to consider 3 applications for variances from the village code. After each public hearing, which included presentation by the petitioners in one case, the commission discussed, developed findings of fact, and voted to recommend the village board take the following actions. And on 151 Hilltop, the vote was 5-1. Recommend that the village board approve the variance requested for a deck extension, subject to the applicant acquiring the appropriate building permit and having all required inspections completed successfully. The Bluffs zoning variation was parcel A of the Bluffs, which is the detention drainage easement, which is the northwest corner of Bonkoski and River Ridge Drive. They recommended approval of the variance requested for the decorative fence. And then for 204 Windsor Court, that was a tie, 3-3. That is the village attorney so aptly pointed out, this is technically a building regulation. So it's their situation is that they're in a side yard, which is not allowed between buildings, and that's why they were asking for the variance from that. So you have a modified ordinance for your discussion and approval or disapproval as you so choose. If you can, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. President, for consideration of the different ordinances.
All right, thank you, Barb. Okay, and the first one, 151 Hilltop, the P and Z has recommended to the board that we accept this variance. While the house was in violation, the proposed deck should be in a straight line with the house. As Ms. Detmer noted, the permit and inspections will be required. So do we have a motion to approve ordinance 2020-13, an ordinance granting a variance to allow for a deck extension at 151 Hilltop Lane within the village of Sleepy Hollow?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Merkel, seconded by Diatley, I believe.
I can second it. I think Ed did too, so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, we got it moved and seconded to accept ordinance 2020-13. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? There being none, roll call, please.
Mr. Merkel,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Harney.
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Moreno.
Did Moreno respond?
Yeah.
Oh,
Anthony, you said yes, correct?
That's correct. Yes, aye.
okay, thank you. Okay, five positive votes, no negative votes, motion so carries. All right, the next one is the Bluffs. They have asked for a variance to replace the fence on the detention area along Bonkowski. They were approved or the recommendation was to approve by the P and Z with a 5-1 vote to the board. We have a motion to approve ordinance 2020-14, an ordinance granting a variance to allow for a fence of lot A of the Bluffs along Bonkowski in the village of Sleepy Hollow.
So moved, Diatley.
Harney, second.
Moved by Diatley, seconded by Harney. Any questions, comments, or discussion?
I have a question. Moreno here.
Sure, Anthony.
I know that they're proposing a white polypropylene, plastic type, no maintenance fence to replace the current wooden rail fence that's there. I think it's a good idea. I think it's going to be longer better for the maintenance, but I just wanted to make sure that we were aware that that's going to be a plastic
Yes, we are. That was
White
that was
fence.
discussed during the variance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure thing.
You know,
Being no further
Steve?
comments or questions?
I have one.
Okay, Joe.
It keeps on getting referred to as a easement. It's actually a private lot in the Bluff subdivision, correct?
May I answer that?
Answer it, Ms. Demmer, please.
The legal description of it is drainage or retention easement. That's the legal description of that particular parcel, sir.
But it is a privately owned parcel. It is, the village has
Yes, it
nothing to do
is.
with it. Okay,
Yes, it is, but it's solely for retention. And that's how the legal description of that lot is per the plat and legal description of held by the county.
okay, thanks.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, there being no further comments or questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Harney.
Aye.
Mr. Merkel,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Bringham.
Aye.
Motion passed.
5 affirmative votes, no negative votes. Motion so passes. Okay, it brings us to the last one. That's 204 Windsor Court. Where did it go? Okay, oh, that's.
It should have one that's written, it says draft on the front of it. Here's a paper copy if you need it.
We have a motion to approve 2020-15,
Yes, that's correct.
a variance to approve the installation of a pool in the side yard at 204 Windsor Court.
So moved.
Second, Diatley.
Moved by Merkel, seconded by Diatley. Any comments, questions, or discussion?
This was a 3-3 vote. Did they, the ones that were voting nay, did they give reasons for their votes? Or?
There was concern because the pool is in existence already, and there's a question as to whether or not it is too close to the underground power from ComEd, so they'll need to move it if that's the case. They have a very unusual lot there. They have 2 front yards because of both deer and the cul-de-sac, Windsor Court. And they've got the scoop out because of the cul-de-sac. So they have very little rear yard. And they also have a septic expansion field as well as the in the rear. So that was part of the concern from the commissioners, is that they had put it in without a permit. And then the other concerns about where they located relative to the ComEd power.
Okay,
And that's
good.
why it's supposed to be with those requirements that they get the permit and everything is, if they have to move it to meet the 15-foot setback for ComEd, that they'll do that.
Okay, is there, so it'll be rectified if comment comes out of Mark's line?
That was
Or
the agreement
Julian.
of the petitioners at the time of the meeting. And that's why that was the recommendation going forward. But we did have the tie for that. And they don't technically have to explain why they do or don't.
Okay, I just wonder if they did, yes. And is there a deck existing around it now?
No, sir, they will be building a deck, and this all came to fruition when the deck contractor contacted this spring, and I said, well, the pool's not even allowed and didn't have a permit, and so he stopped. So there is a plan to put a nice deck around it to get the 3-foot walk area and the additional guard on the pool.
Okay, and does that infringe on any setbacks or
No, sir,
property lines or
it will
anything?
be in compliance.
Okay.
There's not a requirement for that between buildings that we're dealing with in the building regulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions concerning ordinance 2020-15? There are no further comments or questions. Roll call, please.
Mr. Merkel,
Aye.
Mr. Diatley,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
4 affirmative votes, no negative votes. The motion so passes. Okay,
Excuse me, Mr. President,
yes.
you said 4 affirmative votes. Did you get my affirmative vote?
I'm sorry, I'm 5, yes.
I know I'm having some issues here with bandwidth, so I thank you.
I also have some issues counting. Okay, anything else you plan to resolve this evening?
No, sir, thank you very much all for your consideration.
Thank you for your report. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, next item on the agenda is the attorney's report. We have nothing from the attorney this evening. Next item is the engineer's report. We've got a couple items from the engineer this evening. The first one being the 2020 street improvement program. There's a memo from the engineer in regards to this. Back up there. Okay. All right, you got a memorandum from Jeff concerning the 2020 street program. If you remember, we had put aside $135,000 for this year's program. The engineers had gone out there and found a number of streets, and we got the bids in. I think we had 7 bids. The lowest was $89,420. The highest was $119,332.37. These were under the bid estimates from the engineer. He recommends that we accept the low bid that was provided by Arrow Road Construction in the amount of $89,420. We have a motion to so approve and authorize the clerk and the village president to execute the contract documents and all other forms required in the course of this project.
So moved, Moreno.
Second, Diatley.
Moved by Moreno, seconded by Diatley. Any comments, questions, or discussion?
Well, we identified we had talked last time about some additional streets that would be done.
We had mentioned that briefly, Anthony, but I believe you're going to hear a little bit later from Mr. Kyle Killinger as to why we would prefer to use that money for another project other than roads. So at this moment, I suggest we accept the contract at $89,420 and hear from Mr. Killinger on the balance.
I understand. Have we identified then the streets that this amount would be applied towards?
Primarily the roads that we're looking at is Thoroughbred from about Winmore around to Hillcrest and quite a bit of Willow. And then there will be a number of small patching programs throughout the village.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Comments or questions? We have a roll call then on the motion to approve the bid or accept the bid from Arrow Road in the amount of $89,420 for the 2020 road improvement program.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
Mr. Diatley,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Merkel,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Ed?
Ed,
My-
yes or no?
Yes.
Thumbs up. I see a
Aye.
thumbs up from Mr. Harney.
I see it as well.
Okay, we have 5 affirmative votes, no negative votes. The motion so passes. Okay, next item from the engineer regards 874 Winmore and a request for cost sharing of the swale and culvert repair and replacement. Jeff laid it out pretty good in his memo. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns?
What is, exactly does cost sharing mean?
Well,
There's
Mr.
cost
K-
sharing and there's cost sharing.
Cost sharing is cost sharing. We didn't know what kind of total we'd be looking at. Right now, the engineer has provided us with a total of about $9,500. It's the culvert at 2,500, the driveway, just the portion of the driveway that the culvert would be containing would be about $2,500. Regrading the swale and placement of the riprap would be $4,500. And the resident of 874 Winmore is with us this evening, so your question about cost sharing can be answered by the gentleman that's offered it.
Okay, so what,
Great. My name is Jerry Kopaz. I live at 874 Winmore, which is directly across from the parking lot of the pool. Right, and if you're aware of Winmore there, it's quite a slope.
yeah, I've seen your, with the breakthrough, right? I noticed that last week.
Okay, all right, great. So, the cause of my problem, I've had 4 water main breaks on my property within, I don't know, the last 10 years or so. This year I've had 2. One on my property in the middle between those 2 driveways, and the other one was actually on my neighbor's just a little bit up above, which is the one that we'll probably be talking about now. I've made it known that there was ground sinking in front of that culvert pipe for quite a long time, and made it aware that I thought there was a problem down below because that would be sinking always, sank to the tune of about 2 feet before the culvert pipe.
Who'd you make that aware?
To President Pickett.
Myself, Mr. Killinger, and
Yeah.
Mr. Steele.
And what happened is that sinks, and I felt there was a leak under there that wasn't showing, that there was water beneath that was doing something down there. Okay. It was always wet there. You wouldn't see anything bubbling, but it was always wet there. So when the Jeff, the village engineer, came out with President Pickett, a week or 2 ago, we discussed that. He agreed that, probably water, there was a leak at that water main up where it finally sprung. And the water could be following that pipe, which goes right under my culvert, allowing for the sinking of that. Okay. So the cause of the problem, I believe, is because of these water main leaks. And the water main keeps getting repaired piece by piece by piece, and that's why we keep having problems in there. So as far as the cost sharing, I understand that my culvert pipes don't last forever. And I would like to agree to pay for the cost of the pipes itself, because I'd have to replace them at one time or another, whether it's now or next year or 2 years from now, whenever that happens to be. And I understand that that would be at my expense. So I would be wanting to pay for the pipe itself and the village to pay for the balance of construction and paving and whatnot that would be necessary.
So you're gonna pay the 2,500 out of the,
I don't know what the cost of the pipes themselves are.
The engineer has an estimate, Jerry, of $2,500 for the culvert. And
Is it for two of them?
no, just the one.
For one?
No, I have two, I have, and I have a problem with both culverts. And somebody came out and marked the street for cutoff on both culverts.
Did they?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm trying to,
so I believe he's talking about both culverts.
Yeah, it almost looks like sounds like he's talked in the letter about both culverts. Are you the original owner of that home?
No,
Okay, when was that?
I've been there about 15 years.
And when were those culverts, were they put in when the home was originally built or?
Yeah, and I understand that this is the area that was the pumping station, and that this is the oldest water pipes in the area. And they keep springing a leak. And it keeps getting fixed piece by piece. Earlier in the year, I had a 7-foot section in the middle of my property replaced. And then on July 30th, my neighbor who had the actual break on his property texted me and said, there's water running down that culvert. This might be a reason for your erosion there. So I went out right away and took a look at it, and sure enough, it was all wet there, and called in to report it. And the police came out to look at that. And someone else, I don't know if he works for the village or he's an outside contractor.
I've driven by a number of times, but are the pipes rusted?
President Pickett could probably address that.
Okay. I had a question, I guess, for you, Steve. I don't know the answer. If your culvert under your driveway, if say the village is working on the swales and yours is too high or too low for the drainage, is that your expense or is it the village's? I know we don't usually.
typically we have the crossing onto your property over the culvert is your responsibility. It's the homeowner's responsibility.
Okay.
Okay. Now his is a little different because he's got a water main that runs through there too. And there has been water going through his swales, through his culverts, which has caused some deterioration in the ground through there.
I mean, is the thought that the ground under the culvert has disappeared and the culvert been crushed down into that space? I don't understand. I couldn't understand from the letter exactly how the water.
The water's gone around the culvert and washed out the gravel underneath the culvert. And there has been leakage along it. Now, there is also some breaks across the top.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
It's deteriorated. But that is in, the course of the years too.
Right.
But the main damage that Jerry's talking about is the washing of the understructure, what do you want to call it? It's not a structure, but the rock and the subsoils underneath it. Right, there's a good one, subsoils.
I thought, maybe I'm wrong, I thought we weren't allowed to spend village dollars on.
This isn't private property. This is still within the swale.
Okay.
Which is the village right of way. This is within the right of way. The only driveway we're talking about is that right of way section.
It's still his property, but we have.
It's his driveway,
Right.
but we've got, the culverts always typically go in the swales. And the swales are typically within the village right of way. But the understanding in our ordinances is that the homeowner. Example, mine's failing, I've got to pull that out and take it out and replace it. And when I do so, I'm obligated to put the correct drainage in the area. So.
A lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And my contention is that mine is failing because of the water mains that keep springing leaks under there. So, and that's why I say the village should be responsible for that, with the understanding that I know I would be responsible for the pipe and I would pay for the pipes.
I'm not sure. You think he's talking about, Jeff's talking about 2 pipes here or 1?
The one, we've been talking about the one, but I said, I just went back and checked, and he does use the term plural
All right.
of culverts. So,
I do have
I
some
suppose I
photos.
could ask Kyle since he's joined us. Kyle, $2,500, 1 or 2 culverts?
Probably 2. If you're, most of them are usually $60 a square foot, and culverts about 20 feet long. So it'd be under that. But as far as the total cost, I think Jeff's a little low.
Okay. What would your estimate be?
If you were to have Sandman's just do the patch job on the driveway alone for the 2 spots, if we did both, it would be probably $2,300 a piece. And then the excavating, I wouldn't be able to do it with the backhoe, so we'd have to outsource it. They'd have to have somebody with a mini excavator come do the culverts.
Hey, Steve, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hey, Kyle, were you working for us in 2000 or not yet?
I started in 2010.
Okay, because I remember the last time I was on this board, and Tom may remember too, we went through the exact same conversation with the previous owner about the culverts and the driveways and the condition of them. And I don't recall what the resolution was or what we did, but I think that I recall it's almost the exact same conversation, and I'd be curious to see what the resolution was, because I don't think they've been repaired since then.
You said this would.
That's all I have. And I don't remember. Steve, you may have recollection, and we may have to dig through the files or minutes, and I don't remember. I just remember that this exact same house and these same culverts and the exact same discussion around 2000.
I don't recall. Tom, do you recall anything? We'd have to look in the files, Joe.
Yeah, because I remember some conversation with a real estate agent who was dealing with it otherwise. So yeah, that may be worthwhile.
If I understand, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thought I might have lost you. If I understood Kyle correctly, this is going to be quite a bit more expensive. Is that correct?
Well, Kyle's saying, the asphalt patch for both drives would be about 4,600. The engineer has 2,500 estimated, so we're 2,100 over that. The culverts we seem to be within range. The regrading and replacement of the riprap. Kyle, the engineer's got 4,500. You think that's low too?
I think total project cost, I would lean towards being on the safe side just as far as budgetary concerns. I would put around 10 grand.
Total?
Yeah, for 2 culverts and all the work that needs to be done there.
He had 9,500.
We're at 9,500, so.
Okay, okay. So that's pretty close.
I mean, if you use, depending on the contractor, contractor I use is about 5 grand for a full day, just for the excavator. That does, that's re-swale work, setting and placing the culverts. That doesn't cover the culvert price itself, the riprap, and the asphalt. So if you want to base off of that, your starting price that I know is pretty close is going to be 5 grand just for the contractor.
Hey, Kyle, could we get how hard would it be to put some riprap in there initially just to slow the water down the hill?
Well, here's the thing that, if I can add to this, there was 2 main breaks this year. The driveway had problems last year before the main breaks this year. The part of the problem that's going on is that there's holes in the culvert underneath. It's not if the culvert was in good shape and there was a main break above the hill, it would flow through the culvert. all that gravel is getting washed out. That's driveway, that's gravel that's underneath the asphalt of the driveway. So I don't agree that it's because of water main breaks.
No, and I guess that's where I was going with the previous problem, that I'd be curious to see what we did last time about this issue. And I think the owner tried to do some quick repairs shortly before they sold the house. So maybe not then, but about that same time period. But I recall it's the exact same conversation.
If I might interject, that the ground, again, had been sinking prior to the culvert pipe to the tune of about 2 feet. And it keeps going up the hill up there. And so it sunk down below the culvert pipe is where the problems came in. I have photos of all of that. If anyone would like, I could submit here. I also had just gotten estimates from Sandman's Paving regarding the both culverts repairs, which I'll submit to you now. And that was $4,000 with a description of what they would do for both culverts.
Okay. That would put us around 11.5, right? Kyle was saying about 5,000 for the grading, 4,000, and then 2,500 for the culverts.
You can see on those photos how the ground way before the culvert has dropped. And it keeps working its way back. And the main drop was just before my culvert. Which is why I brought it to the attention that I think there's something going on down there. And then finally, it sprung a leak further up the hill. And then the water ran through there for over 12 hours before the water was shut off.
Kyle, you're saying that the gravel under the blacktop is what was eroded, and that's what's causing it then?
Yeah, so what's happening is any significant flow of water, whether it be a water main break or a heavy rainstorm, it's carrying all that water down and it's just washing everything out around the culvert. Everything that's anywhere near the culvert is just getting washed out. And the longer it goes on, the bigger the ditch is going to be, and the more it's going to push farther to the south. So it's just working its way up the ditch. The same situations on the culvert on the north side, the lower one that's farther down the hill. They're just bad culverts. And when you have bad culverts and water's not properly flowing through it and it's going around it, you get what we had with Bullfrog Lane. It's the same thing.
There's a statement from the engineer, and I'll just read it. That's questionable here. The failure of the pavement in the driveway is direct related to culvert failure, which could have been mitigated if driveway culverts were replaced when the failure was first noticed. We have been told that the failure of the culverts has been occurring for years. Is that what, Kyle, are you in agreement with that statement?
I am, yeah.
I would like to add that the water main breaks have been taking place over a period of years.
Based on, as Pareto here with a question.
Go ahead, Anthony.
based on the culvert would be on the resident's property, or would it be in the right of way?
Right of way,
Thank you.
Where does his property line run to?
his property line.
I mean, we get back to like, there's hours, it's
Typically, it's about 15 feet off the edge of the paint. So when you look at the pictures, you can see where the road is, in toward his house, about 15 feet. Okay, that's the right of way. And that's where we've also got the water mains.
I have a second question.
Go ahead, Anthony.
So the resident is looking to pay half of the total of the job, or just the amount of the $2,500 that appears in the engineer's letter for the culverts?
I'd be willing to pay for the pipes for the culverts, because those are things that I would have to replace at one time or another. But I contend that the damage that is going through here is due to water main breakage in a lot of cases, water main breakage and the erosion of things because of.
Right, so right now, if we just look at the letter from the engineer, the total of $9,500, and I know we've discussed, it could be more than this, but just from the letter that we have in the packet, the resident would just be willing to pay the $2,500 of the $9,500. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and the driveway replacement is part of it is all the driveway portion that's being replaced, and I've driven by there as well. That driveway portion then is actually in the right of way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just relating it to my own house. I'm replacing my driveway and I'm replacing my culvert, and I'm not asking, for any additional monies from the village. So it'd be difficult for me to say only $2,500 of the $9,500. And then it causes the village, again, just with our papers here, to be paying, $6,500 or $7,000, which I think would be tough.
Can I add just some more info for the board to hear? If you go on Google Maps, Street View, go to the address that on the bottom of the screen, it says image capture 2018. And you can see there's already holes in the driveway right where the culvert is, right where we're talking. That's just a little more info for you guys if you're curious.
Can John Florence put that on bring that up and share the screen with everybody or not?
John said we can do anything.
Yes,
He'll
this
be
is,
back as soon as
this
he
has
finishes
been going
going
on. This has been an ongoing problem on my property with the water main breaks. And there were 2 this year, but there were 2 prior to this as well.
We didn't have any main breaks there last year or in 2018.
No, probably 3 to 4 years ago, I would think.
or wait, I just have a couple thoughts.
Sure.
If the village is responsible for the damage, I would kind of like to talk this over with Mr. Schuster. And if it might be a stretch in my mind to say that we're responsible, but if we're responsible, perhaps our insurance carrier would have some coverage to handle some of this. We do have insurance, and if it's a liability claim, I'm not sure it is. I'm not saying it is, but if it is, maybe.
Well, you want to table this and,
I'm not trying to put you off. I'm just trying to, it seems like since I've been here, we always are hesitant to spend village money on, for, you know.
And if I were replacing my driveway and culverts and things, I wouldn't expect for the village to be paying any money for it. But the reason that this happened is because of the water main breaks.
Respectfully, sir, our public works director said we haven't had water main breaks in the last couple of years. So some years ago, would this have been brought to the village in the same way, or was it just brought up now?
It has been brought up over the past few years that this ground was sinking before that culvert.
there must be an afternoon shot.
Steve?
Somebody have a question? I can't see.
Miss Joe does. Yeah, I was just gonna say, it doesn't seem like we're gonna be able to reach a resolution tonight based on the information we have. It seems like we need more information. Is it best just to table this discussion for now and get other facts? If we can see if we can find any previous letters from the previous owner, any building permits, Mark's opinion otherwise, and move forward at the next meeting.
You making a motion to postpone this till October 7th?
I don't think we have a motion on the floor. I thought it was just a discussion, wasn't it?
5th. October 5th is the next meeting. You want to put this on the agenda for October 5th?
Right. I just think we need consensus on that, don't we? Because I don't think there's a motion. So it just seems like that's the way we can move forward.
I'll make a motion, Perino here, that we put this on the October 5th agenda pending the information from the village attorney and additional information from the village engineer and public works director.
And I would add to that from any building permits or any information the clerk may be able to find on the address.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to postpone this until the October 5th meeting.
Who was the second?
Ed. Okay, any further comments, questions, or discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Merkel,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Datley.
Aye.
5 affirmative votes, no negative votes. This has been postponed until October 5th. Okay,
Thank you.
we'll see you on October 5th.
That'll probably be on old business, so it'll be a little later in the meeting.
Okay.
Right, Steve?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is the accounts payable warrants for September 21st, 2020. Do I have a motion to so accept or approve?
So moved, Diatley.
Diatley made the motion to accept the warrants of $125,007.33. Who seconded?
Harney second.
Harney second. Okay. We got a motion and a second to approve the warrants of September 21st, 2020 in the amount of $129,027.33. Any additions, deletions, comments, or questions? There being none, roll call, please.
Mr. Datley,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Merkel, Mr. Nimitz. I'm sorry,
Joe.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
We lost Joe? We've lost Joe. Joe.
No, I said aye. You didn't hear me?
I didn't hear you.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
We have 5 affirmative votes, no negative votes. The motion so carries. Okay, public comments. We have no public comments this evening. Move on to the trustees' reports, roads and parks. Ed, anything to say from the Northwoods?
I talked to Kyle. Let's just cover it in old business. Kyle's ready to do that.
What was that?
I think he handed the
We're
ball.
gonna do it covering old business.
Oh, okay. Kyle's got old business. Okay, so in that case, thank you for your report, Ed. We'll move on. The next one is finance. We've got a 2001 fiscal year budget for your review and approval. We do have some items to consider. First off, before we do that, I want to go to executive session as they are concerning the salaries of employees. So I'll move on to water and sewer. Joe?
Just one note of interest. If you remember, we had the fire suppression system at Sleepy Hollow School, the line broke. As part of that, when Kyle turned off the water on Walnut Drive unexpectedly went off. That line is on the map, shows as looped with Carroll Crest. So with the idea that there may be some valves in there that are shut off or otherwise, so Kyle sent water services out there to investigate it. They investigated with, I believe, their listening devices, listening for water. They did some ultrasound and came back to Kyle and said there is definitely no water main between Walnut and Carroll Crest. Talked to Jeff Steele about it. He goes, all I have is an ancient map that shows it there. That's why it's on our map. Looks like there's no water main there. Sometime in the future, that's one that would definitely need to be looped in because Jeff Steele said that's a long dead end that shouldn't be that way. And there are no easements between Walnut and Carroll Crest, just to add to that. So that's all I have unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Joe? There being no questions, thank you, Joe. Police and public safety, Steve?
No report tonight.
Thank you, Steve. Buildings and environment, Tom?
No report.
Thank you, Tom. Building and zoning, Anthony?
Just a question on, I believe it's 1998 Sleepy Hollow Road. It's the first house as you come down Bo Bremel and you would to make a left turn onto Sleepy Hollow Road. It's the first house on the left. It's the one that has the little driveway pad at the bottom. Recently there's been some trees that have been removed, and most of them were live trees. I had some comments from other residents in the village regarding removal of live trees, and I did not find anything in the code that says we cannot remove live trees. But is there any area that anyone has ideas on regarding live tree removal?
No, I believe as the former environmental chair that my recollection is that when the tree ordinance was passed, the person who brought it to the board wanted to make it more inclusive to have restrictions on permitting for live trees and otherwise, but I believe that there are no restrictions on moving live trees in the village. Matter of fact, I believe we have a few parts of that ordinance which require you to move certain species of trees.
Right, and that's kind of what I found. I know that, we've gone through some storms recently and trees that, are causing damage to your house or personal property. If they are live or being trimmed back or cut back, in some cases, cut down in half. But I just think that it's probably an area I need to look a little further into, just to see if, in the event, especially on Sleepy Hollow Road, but in the event that there are areas where we would request, some additional investigation as to whether a live tree should be taken down or not. So It just, it's come up a few times. I just wanted to bring it up just to get some feedback. Thank you, Joe. That's
You're
all
welcome.
that's all I had.
I have a comment or a question. I wasn't on the board at the time, but I recall that some people on Sleepy Hollow Road took down trees and they were fined and they were required to replace the trees with some pretty hefty trees. So I'm wondering if that was part of the pleasure driveway.
And the pleasure driveway does not deal with the vegetation.
Okay.
It just
Well,
deals with-
I'm talking about the house.
You're talking about Mr. Hickrod.
Yeah, under what authority was that then?
That was a little bit different situation. He took off down trees that were within the right of way of the village. And he did not have any conversations with anyone.
Okay.
This one, on the other end of the street, that had been a house under foreclosure. There was a lot of damage to the house and to the yard. There were dead trees laying across the parking pad at the bottom. Matter of fact, there were 2 or 3 dead trees down along there. And there was also a safety issue with the sight lines getting onto Sleepy Hollow Road from that driveway. If you look at it, that's what they've cleaned out. They cleaned out the dead stuff and the dead vegetation and back up along their little parking ramp. That was a little bit different than what Mr. Hickrod had done.
Okay, I mean, to me, it looks like they did pretty well a clear cut down there for, which would still be in the right of way. I just, was that the Sharon Ware property? And wasn't she fined at one time, Sharon Ware, for?
Well, we had a conversation with her about some work that she had done down there.
I just don't understand. I mean, to me, this is the reason when former trustee Priggy had brought in an idea about how to manage Sleepy Hollow Road. Because if we all take, if every resident there takes the approach that they have sightline problems, we could just basically clear cut Sleepy Hollow Road and destroy the nature of it. I guess with Hickrod, I'd have to look back at the board notes and see why, why did they have to replace trees and why were they fined, but these people not? That it doesn't. Did they get permission to take the trees down? Did they have? So they just run over the chainsaw like Mr. T and
they were on private property.
Right. Well, so were Hickrod was on private property too.
I think he was down into the right of way.
The stumps are out there. They cut them real close to the road. They're real close to the road. So
Thank you, John.
I don't know. We can maybe look into that a little further.
Well, there's a picture of it right there that John has. And you can see where the dead trees are hanging down all around. That's what's been cleaned up. There's no other tree between that driveway and the road. Those trees are back up on the side.
What was this picture from, John?
This had to have been last spring, at least,
Yeah,
because that's you can see the dead trees hanging down. And those came on down over. This had to be a couple of years ago because there's garbage cans in the driveway and the house has been vacant for the better part of a year.
It was
That's all
probably
I have.
2018 because I think that's when Google came through the town. It should say it on the lowest part of the screen. It's kind of hard to see. It's really small.
What do we see, Joe?
we're on the left or the right?
Typically it's on the right.
Let me see if I can pull it up on my iPad. But I can't. It's too small on my screen to see.
Yeah, and the Kane GIS shows the property line for that road. It goes just about to the middle of that parking pad. So.
Okay, anything else, Anthony?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Old business. Okay, we've got a couple of items here, a review of the miscellaneous village fees. The list was provided to you. I don't know if you've had time to go through it. You want to discuss them tonight, or you want to put this off until the October 5th meeting?
Mr. President,
Yes, Joe.
Mr. Schuster has been emailing me back and forth today about some of the miscellaneous water fees that did not make it on here. So I know we have at least 3 of those that need to be added. So maybe we just want to discuss this at the next meeting when everybody has time to review it.
Your recommendation, your motion then is to postpone until October 5th?
Correct.
Second.
Moved and seconded to postpone the review of the miscellaneous village fees until October 5th. Moved and seconded. Any further comments, questions, or discussion?
The fees that are on this list, these are our current fees, although it says 2017 at the top.
Some of them have been corrected, some of them have not. If you notice, the fees listed for the vehicles does not match the fees on the application.
Right, that was my question. Okay.
As Joe said, there's some others, especially in the water department, that are missing also. So,
All right, thank you.
no further comments or questions. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pareno,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Merkel,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley.
Aye.
Okay, we got 5 affirmative votes and no negative votes. The motion to postpone until October 5th is so approved.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ed?
I just lost power here. If I leave the meeting shortly, I'll back on and hook up a generator. So just so you know.
Okay, Ed. We'll be here for a little while.
Okay.
Okay. Get some electricity in the North Woods. Okay, I don't know, did everybody hear that? We may be losing Mr. Harney here shortly, so. Okay, next item under old business is the Willow Drainage Project proposal. Kyle?
Okay, so everybody should have the proposal by Ponds Inc. to continue on with the Willow Lane drainage that we have done. Last year, we did the north side of Willow Lane, and this, I'm looking to get the south side where the houses sit. The project scope would be from Winmore Drive to Bullfrog. So it's, the addresses are on there on the proposal. It'd be 955 to 941 Willow Lane. If you look at the map that the contractor put together of the scope of the project, it would be to replace all of the village culverts that come across Willow Lane, going from the south to the north side into where the cattails are on the village property side. Currently, they have all popped up. They're like speed bumps now, and 70% of them have holes in it, and they need to be replaced anyways. This proposal also includes doing grading to make sure that the drainage in the swales goes to the culvert. I would like to note that if you're looking at the picture of the project, they have removed culverts at 945 and 951. We will not be doing that. That's the homeowner's responsibility, and met with the engineer, and he thinks that we can get away with not doing it anyways, based on the pitch. We would also be changing the pipes. If the board approves it, the engineers are going to go out there and shoot the grade and look at the floodplain and all that. But I strongly recommend switching from going to 12-inch size culverts to 2 6-inch culverts where each culvert exists right now. That being, you can set it a little bit lower based on the pitch down there, and it would make it less likely to pop up in 10 to 12 years. Total project cost, the contractor proposal just for their labor and work, they put it at $34,110. That does not include materials. I estimate the materials will be around $8,000, and they didn't put it in there, meaning I could buy it through the village at a cheaper price with government and tax exempt status. So the total project cost would be $42,110. And when we were talking about the street program, that's where I would like to see the rest of that money, the 135 that we budgeted for, after the $89,000 come out of. That would leave $3,461 left towards the street program. And that's all I have. So if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and ask.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we accept the proposal from Ponds Inc. in the amount of $34,110 for the second part of the Willow Lane project.
Second.
Moved and seconded, moved by Nemick and seconded by Moreno to accept the Ponds quote of $34,110 to do part 2 of the Willow Lane drainage issue. Any further comments, questions, or discussion?
I just have one question for Kyle. Kyle, you said the 6-inch culverts are better to put lower so they won't pop up?
Yeah, so because it's the elevation down there, it's so low to begin with, you know, that it's
All right.
constant water. We could, with a 12-inch culvert, you can't put as much over the top of it. Basically,
Gotcha.
you gotta have, I forget what the code is, but it's gotta be 3 inches of gravel and then asphalt.
Okay.
This way we can do 6 inches of gravel, maybe more, and asphalt.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does this work towards the other Willow project that Jeff Steele was looking at for the water that's in the back of those homes?
In theory, it should help.
Front yard across the street.
What's that?
It helps get the water from the front yards and possibly the backyards of those southern homes to the north side of Willow.
So in theory is if you're able to drain the front, that would take away a lot of the saturation and it might help. Jeff hasn't come with his final findings on the backyards over there off of Willow, and I can't give you like a really great answer on it, but you know, physics really, if you were able to clean out the front with getting the water out of there instead of having it constantly sit and saturate all that ground, it might help with the stuff farther back.
Well, I can also add too is that the residents there don't have the option of doing what the other residents did of draining their backyards and hiring a contractor because there's no place for it to go out of the front yard.
Right.
Thank you.
At the last meeting, I asked Jeff where his written report was for the drainage from those properties. He said he'd have it at this meeting.
And I talked to him last week. He did not have it. He's still got new information last week. They hope to have it compiled this week or next.
You know, my other question is, or comment is, whatever happened to putting this out for competitive bids? You look at the road project, there's a $30,000 difference between the bid we accepted and the highest bid. Here, we're just going to Ponds and Ponds is giving us a quote and we're just going with this without even shopping this out. This is a lot of money. And we're just going to say, here's 34,000. Let's put this out. Let someone else bid on it. Maybe there's somebody who's going to come in at 30,000 or 25,000. I don't understand just giving this out to one company. I don't feel comfortable with that at all, so.
Well,
we got a little extra money. We're so strapped for money. Let's just, Ponds writes up something and there we go. Let's tell us right there, here, where to send them the check, you know? This does not seem right to me.
Well, if we go out to bid, Tom, it's going to take a lot longer, and most likely it'll be more money. You have to pay the engineer firm to do an engineering spec plan and all that, and then you're going out to bid. I'll put it this way: we went out to bid for Bullfrog, and that was $52,000. That was just for one 48-inch culvert going 30 feet. These guys are going from Winmore to Bullfrog, and they're doing multiple culverts plus swale work for $34,000.
Jeff estimated the road project at quite a bit more. That's why we had this, it came in quite a bit less. So I don't have real confidence in people just saying, we're not gonna get a better price. I don't think that's the way to handle our villagers' money, just as to say, Pond said that this is what they'll do it for, so that's good enough for me. That's not good enough for me. So, I mean, you guys vote the way you want to vote, but this does not just seem like the right way to be doing business, the village's business. We're trustees, so the people put their trust in us to turn over every quarter or nickel a few times before we spend it to make sure we're doing it right. And this does not, especially in this economy and the way things are going, this does not seem to me to be the right way to be doing this.
Hey, Kyle, how much do we spend on engineering for the Bullfrog project to put it out to bids? Remember,
I don't know. I'd have to look at it.
it was several $1,000s though, correct?
Yeah.
Steve, do you remember off the top of your head?
No, I don't, Joe.
Okay.
Now, Kyle, Ponds did the first part of the project on the other side, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they should have the knowledge of knowing what's there and what they're working with, I would think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, aren't we trying to keep from duplicating expenses by doing it this way? And I think that's what the residents of the village would want us to do. Are we saving by not duplicating expenses, by not going to bid?
Good point, Ed. Any other comments or questions? There being none, we had a motion and a second on this?
Yes,
Yes, we did.
Mr. Nemec, moved and seconded by Pareno.
Pareno, okay, moved by Nemic, seconded by Pareno. No further comments or questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Merkel,
No,
Mr. Nemec,
Aye.
Mr. Pareno.
Aye.
Okay, we've got 4-1. The motion so passes. Okay, any other old business to come before the board? No other old business come before the board, new business. I've got executive session for personnel according to section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act. We please have a motion to adjourn to executive session.
so moved.
Second.
Already,
Moved by Merkel, seconded by Diatley to move into executive session. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
aye.
Mr. Merkel,
Aye.
Mr. Nemec,
Aye.
Mr. Pareno.
Aye.
4 affirmative votes, no negative votes. We are going into executive session.
We need a few minutes.
Give us a couple of minutes to get the tape recorder switched over and we'll be moving on.
Let the clerk have some blood back into his arm. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Good night.
See you on the 5th.
Hey, chief,
Go ahead.
I know we're out of meeting. Just a quick question. Last week, there was I didn't see it myself, but there was an accident when somebody trying to turn left onto Joy from Randall. Has there been any talk about that arrow being timed so that northbound on Randall and southbound on Randall get the red light at the same time?
I can look into it.
Because I know that when you're going south on Randall, the opposing traffic coming towards you still has a green. And if the yellow light, the arrow is flashing and you know the people on your right are stopped, I guess the assumption is the people coming towards you are also stopped, and that's where some difficulty comes at times.
But according to the IVC, a flashing yellow turn signal means proceed with caution. You know, you're allowed to turn, but proceed with caution. That's what yellow means, meaning be prepared to stop, red's coming, proceed with caution through the intersection.
Right, now I understand, just it's strange, we're all getting used to that and a lot of intersections now have the yellow, which is nice.
Right.
Just that because I know, you know, we heard the sirens and then like, what's going on? And there it was. All right. Just an observation.
Yeah, we can watch a couple cycles to see if it's off.